Hello, my name is Daniel Olson, and this is my job research presentation for the Physics 489 Senior Seminar class. In this presentation, I'll be discussing my interview with a software engineer, what I learned from the interview, and how it can be applied to my chosen career path. So the first question that needs to be answered is, why software engineering? Why would a physics student about to graduate with an undergraduate physics degree interview a software engineer instead of a physicist to learn more about career paths? And the answer to that can be traced back to my career interests. I've been fascinated in the physics simulations used in animation for a long time, almost 10 years now, and I want to work as a software engineer programming these physics simulations. This interest mainly stems from the animated Pixar movie Brave, which came out back in 2012. I've originally was interested in the advanced curly hair simulation used for the film's main character. I was interested in the heavy amount of science and physics that went into the arts, and I thought it was kind of cool that those two disparate fields could work together so closely. Ever since then, I've grown more interested in other physics simulations and effects, such as cloth physics and lighting. I've just grown more and more interested in working in this field. To this end, I have unofficially focused my studies on computational physics throughout this undergraduate degree. While our school doesn't offer any computational physics track in its physics programs, I chose to take both of our school's computational physics course offerings, as well as focus my undergraduate research project on creating an online educational physics simulation to teach about reference frames, all to learn more about software engineering and how it can be tied together with physics. Unfortunately, I was unable to get in touch with any software engineers working for any animation studios. I still wanted to learn more about software engineering and generally what the career looks like, so I got in contact with Chris Wickham, who works as a software engineer alongside his partner, and they run Cascade Custom Software Inc., which is a business down in Oregon. Chris and his partner work with about 15 different clients, and they write new software, improve old software for their clients. Specifically to address different needs that they discover through talking with these different clients. They also, in addition to working on projects by themselves, assist some of those clients' software engineering teams to either provide support or get work done that otherwise couldn't be done by just themselves. I asked Chris a couple of different questions throughout the course of our 15-minute interview, the first of which regarded his education. I wanted to know what he thought were the most valuable skills and things that he learned in his education and how it had affected his career and helped him throughout it. I asked him this primarily due to my differing background in physics, and I wanted to know what to look out for as I moved into my graduate education, what skills I should be thinking about really building. Surprisingly, though, some of his most valued skills that he gained in his education were skills I would say are the most valuable from mine, namely that of teamwork and self-discipline. He talked about how he's learned plenty of good things in his education regarding computer science and tech and programming and whatnot, but at the end of the day, the tech industry is very rapidly improving and changing and growing constantly, and he's had to work hard to keep up with that throughout his career. At the end of the day, the more valuable skills that have really stuck with him that he learned have been teamwork skills such as getting along with others and being able to problem solve with others and work effectively in groups have all been important, and self-discipline has also been important. Be able to time manage well and set yourself to a task and get it done without need for supervision from others. He then talked a little bit about how that self-discipline has come into his continuing education. As previously mentioned, the tech industry is constantly growing and improving. He's often had to set aside time, whether it be at work or after work or on the weekends, in order to learn about new technologies or programming languages or skills as needed in order to stay good at his job. After talking a bit about his education, I asked him what some of the differences between working at a smaller software development business and a large company like Microsoft or Amazon was. He had a couple of different things to say about that, namely talking about the pros and cons of each size of business, so to speak. he said that he really enjoyed the individuality and the lack of bureaucracy that came from working in a small business like his. He said that you often feel like just another cog in the machine while working at bigger businesses like the tech giants, and that often it can be very hard to really get a sense of your own work when you're working on such massive projects, whereas he always knows what's up and has a bit of control over his work, working as a small two-man operation. He did say that working to keep up with the industry through continuing education is much easier at some of these larger companies, though, which often pay for continuing education or set aside training days and team building exercises for employees to come to grips with new tasks. And he said that there's certainly more opportunities to learn from others when working on these bigger group projects and tasks, even if at the end of the day you don't feel quite as unique. After talking about the differences between types of businesses that employ software engineers, we talked a little bit about what it was like to work on teams, specifically because I've only really ever had experience working on projects on my lonesome when it comes to programming. I wanted to know what it was like to work in teams on software engineering. He said that there was a bit of a dichotomy between working with others and working on your own lonesome. That being that while it's important to have a team leader who organizes the project and keeps it on a strict timeline and make sure tasks are getting done correctly, and tasks are divvied up correctly according to needs of different employees, at the end of the day, once you're working on whatever programming you need to do, you yourself are working on it. Sometimes you can come together with other employees to work through problems and troubleshoot for bugs and things like that with others. But at the end of the day, you really can be working by your lonesome for a couple of hours at a time. He talked about how it is nice to be able to have those other resources available to work and talk with others. Finally, Chris discussed the importance of following common industry standards and practices and understanding different software engineering design methodologies such as Agile and Scrum, among others. He mentioned that it's important to understand those design methodologies, whether or not you're a leader in the team or just a team member, in order to be effective in your role in assisting others. And he mentions that often in teams it's important to make sure that you're writing clean code with good comments, a good structure, following a style guide in order to make your code readable by other employees so that they can understand it when referring back to it, and help problem solve as the project continues. Once we finished talking about that question, I wrapped up the interview, and looking back on it, there's certainly a lot to be learned from the interview, some of which I already knew. Obviously, the importance of clean coding is something that I've worked on in my own classes, but learning about the teamwork aspects of software development have been insightful and should hopefully be able to guide my studies as I go on to study computer science at a graduate level after going through a bridge program. And that wraps it up for what I learned from the interview. There are definitely differences between the type of software engineering that Chris is doing and what I hope to do after going to grad school. But nevertheless, it was still insightful and helped me to get a better idea of some of the things I know less about when it comes to software engineering. Listed here are my image sources, and I thank you for your time.